Welcome to this edition of Platform. I'm Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Nigeria, less than a decade ago, accounted for more than half of all global cases of wild polio virus. Polio usually affects children under 5, sometimes leading to irreversible paralysis. Death can also occur when breathing muscles are affected. On the 18th of June 2020, the African Regional Certification Commission accepted all certification documentation of Nigeria, and thereafter, August 29, 2020, declared Nigeria, and indeed the entire WHO Africa region, free from the wild polio virus. Experts say these celebrations are a culmination of 3 decades of hard work and dedication of Nigeria's polio eradication initiative. This edition of Platform examines Nigeria's polio-free status, challenges and prospects. Our guest is Africa's and indeed one of the world's leading virologists, Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi. With more than 3 decades of experience in clinical medicine and public health, Professor Nasidi was for 16 years Nigeria's chief epidemiologist and retired in 2011. He became Pioneer Director General, National Center for Disease Control, NCDC, in 2011. Professor Nasidi also served as Executive Director, ECOWAS Regional Center for Disease Control. He is currently Provost, College of Health Sciences, University of Africa, Toruarua in Bayelsa State. Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi, welcome to Platform.
Thank you for having me.
On the panelist corner is our head of NTA Health Desk, Rabi Abdullah.
Thank you. Welcome, viewers.
Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi, welcome once again, and let's begin from the beginning, as they usually say. We will come to the issue of celebration and the Nigeria's polio-free status. But what exactly is the history or the epidemiology of polio in Nigeria?
Well, I think it's better to start with the history of the disease eradication. How come the world decided to eradicate polio? And how did Nigeria come to, take active part? One, we start by, seeing that was it possible to really eradicate any disease at all? And to eradicate means you will be able to not just remove the disease, but the cause of the disease from a community and the environment. So that means you are eradicating the disease. The world had an experience with smallpox. And in the late 60s, early 70s, the world saw that smallpox affects only humans. There is no animal reservoir. And it has a vaccine that was actually protecting people, okay? And that if they can work together, all countries to come and get everybody immunized, then the virus can be, eliminated and the disease eradicated. So that effort was championed by the World Health Organization. And by the year 1990, the world was completely free of smallpox, even much earlier, but certification and all this. So the experts now came together and said, let's look for any other second disease that we could do the same. So the idea of eradicating polio, came up. Why is it that polio was targeted? Just like smallpox, polio virus, affects only humans. It doesn't have any animal reservoir. So it doesn't survive long outside human body. In the environment, it doesn't survive long. It has 2 cheap vaccines. One is killed, developed by one Dr. Salk, an American, and then the other one is live, vaccine, developed by another American-Russian scientist called Sabin. So, and all these vaccines cost cents, very cheap. So they said, oh, wonderful. Just like smallpox, why don't we face polio and see if we can all come together, bring all the nations together to get it eradicated. And it started. It was a cheap vaccine. They could mass produce it. Humans are ready to get it. That time it was used only for routine immunization. So in 1988, the WHO launched this, global polio eradication initiative. And true to it, the results were phenomenal. Within 10 years, many countries, virtually eliminated the polio virus. No more polio cases. So before you can say it is a global victory, there should not be any country that will have one polio. So the global eradication initiative continued until when it came to just 4 countries left in the world. And I'm cutting the long story short. And these countries are Nigeria, Pakistan, India, and Afghanistan. So the competition started. How will Nigeria get out of this 4 quickly and make Africa polio-free? So Nigerian government, started real battle. To be frank, we have to praise all the Nigerian leaders from that 1988 till today. No new leader came in and did not prioritize polio eradication. So that helped us. So, but we had some challenges. Despite those good, how will I say, high-level advocacy coming from the presidents and heads of states. And that challenge, or the major challenge, was when rejection of the vaccine, came on the table. Some, intellectuals and some, religious groups are saying... Conspiracy theories are saying that we should be careful. The polio eradication strategy is actually targeted at reducing the population of either black people or people in the developing countries. So many people started pulling away from the polio immunization. But especially in Nigeria, the Nigerian one became so bad when some of the professors, intellectuals, started saying that this gonadotropin is a component of the vaccine, and that that component exists in each of the vaccine, and that is an agent that can actually sterilize women, make women not to take in, and whatever. So that theory was, supported by some leaders in Nigeria, some religious leaders, some governors. So all our achievements between 1988 and let's say 2005 was thrown to the dustbin. So we have to start all over again, re-strategize. But true to it, some of the governors who supported that theory, quickly understood that there's need to pull back a little bit. And I'll give a good example of Kano. Kano was where virtually the whole immunization against polio was rejected in the country. And it really shook us. It worried us a lot. It worried the then head of state and the president.
And it was in Kano that vaccinators were killed.
Exactly. So I will tell you. So now, how do we bring Kano back? And the governor then was Alhaji Shekarau. And he's an intellectual, he was virtually a professor, and this. So we just thought, no, this shouldn't come from him. How do we approach him? And when I was made the chairman of the presidential task force, I approached the governor, and I was lucky. He really agreed with me, understood what we were saying, and within a short period of time, he mobilized Kano so much that, immunization against polio, became so huge. And we reduced the wild polio, the circulating wild polio virus in Kano within 1.5 to 2 years by more than 98%. So he had a commissioner for health called Aisha Kiru. She was a tough lady. She was both commissioner for health and a woman leader, and a real, foot soldier. She even got invited by the WHO. She addressed the WHO General Assembly. She really did very well. So we worked with them, and Kano became a state, the avant-garde, in polio eradication, activity. So this is the story of the polio eradication in Nigeria. And when we had virtually attained what they call universal childhood immunization. That is, each country should get their children by at least 80% fully immunized against all the childhood diseases. So we started 1988 during Ransom Kuti, and by 1990, in less than 2.5 years, we already attained universal childhood immunization. 80% of almost all Nigerian children were immunized, full campaigns, things were working. Then all of a sudden, unfortunately, things went bad, to the extent that at a stage in Nigeria, routine immunization became so bad that when they did this health and demographic survey, National Health and Demographic Survey, only about 11.7% Nigerian children were immunized. It was such a scandal. So we now just say we have to start all over. So that's how we now started building, do the routine immunization, strengthen it, and at the same time conduct campaigns, national immunization days, mop-up operations, etc., so that we can now achieve 2 goals. Goal number 1, strengthen our routine immunization and reach the universal childhood immunization, which is 80% coverage. And also goal number 2, eradicate polio, which means we must get all children immunized against polio so that we knock off the wild circulating polio virus.
Okay, Professor Nasidi, like you rightly said at the beginning, a lot of political will at the highest level, concerted efforts on the part of traditional leaders and development partners saw us, made progress to where we wanted to be, and that saw us experiencing a good moment from 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. That we even got to 2016, and we're at the verge. Everybody was warming up to when we get to that, point where we could say Nigeria has successfully kicked polio out of its, shores. And something happened. All of a sudden, we had a retrogression. Start by sharing a personal experience. Where were you when you got the news of the fact that a case had been detected in Borno, which was a major setback for us?
Well, we expected it.
How did you feel?
No, we expected it.
Okay.
Because to be able to knock off the wild polio virus everywhere, you must immunize the children. The active engagement, military engagement in Borno and Northeast made that task very difficult. So we knew that there will be hard-to-reach areas that will make the healthcare workers' life, in danger, if they go in there, until they have the collaboration of both sides, both the Nigerian military and then even the Boko Haram. They have to agree before you could reach those type of areas. Then the IDP camps, if you know how they operate, when an IDP center is established, you don't even know, you can't estimate how many people will end up there or how many children. And in a day, from the deep, areas where the active engagement is going on, some of the members can, of the community can just move in and looking for where to camp and moving into the IDPs. So with that type of something, you will get so many unimmunized children coming in to mix up with immunized children, and then you can easily pick a wild polio virus circulating there. So when we got the news, we knew it was a setback, but we have another 2-3 years to clean up, do mop-up operations, and the Nigerian Primary Care and Development Agency and the partners, WHO, UNICEF, Rotary particularly, then the foundations that are helping, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Dangote Foundation, the Northern Traditional Rulers Group, and then the religious leaders. everybody came together, and it dawned on the people, both sides, both on the Boko Haram side and the Nigerian said that every child should be protected. And so we were lucky to have, got the wild polio virus knocked off. In fact, I must say, many of our healthcare workers lost their lives. Many of the Nigerian military that really helped, to protect them and get this done, also lost their lives. So it was one of the toughest moments. It's like what the Hausas say, when they are shaving your head, it's more painful when it comes towards the end.
To the forehead.
To the forehead. So that is exactly, the last lap of the fight was really, really tough. But we made it, and we're all proud of it.
Well, as a professor of epidemiology, at what point will you say polio became a public health emergency?
Yeah, so that is a very interesting question. And many experts in the world, at the initial stages, did not believe that polio was a global public health emergency. So when the idea came to eliminate polio, because of the reasons I gave, many of the experts just thought, no, a disease like TB, like diphtheria, these are killing children more than polio. Why?
Malaria.
Malaria. Why are you choosing polio to eradicate? But the number of paralyzed children and all this was growing. It became embarrassing to the healthcare sector to see that, we have a disease that has a very cheap and most effective vaccine against it, and that we still fold our arms to keep seeing our children either dying, it doesn't kill much, but it kills, and then or getting paralyzed. So number of paralyzed children were so many. If you remember, not long ago, so many children on the wheel and all this and so on and so forth. So.
And we had some children probably whose parents had the dream of seeing their children become footballers, stars or something.
Yeah, in fact, I will come to that. So you will see the people who initiated it, who pushed it. Some of them were doctors who were involved in the eradication of smallpox. They said, no, let's declare it a global public health emergency of international concern and put it as an obligation by all nations to participate and declare that polio must be eradicated. So at the WHO meeting, the World Assembly of 1988, that decision was taken, endorsed by everybody. So all nations now made it that polio is a disease of global emergency. And I think, the WHO regions were now given a target and say, let's make sure that by the year 2000, polio should be eradicated worldwide. It was, the strategy to do it was planned and endorsed. 2000 came, the disease that they used to see 400 cases in the 90s and all this, in 400,000. We managed to reduce them that by the year 2000, you see only about 2,000, 4,000 cases worldwide. And then by the year 2005, so they couldn't attain that, so they shifted it to 2005. Still, they couldn't attain it, they keep shifting it. Yeah. It's like health for all by the year 2000. So by the time it now dawned on everybody that, many countries can easily, get rid of this polio, even if there are wars, like Angola. They had a civil war, very serious one, but they removed the virus from their country within a short period of time because all those participating in the struggle, in the fight, agreed to immunize their children. So why should Nigeria be among the 4 countries that were not eliminating polio virus? It became a real scandal for us. We started looking for the reason. Yeah, I'm sure you have heard about Professor Yewale Tomori. He's one of our leading virologists, and Professor Idris Mohammed, and Professor Tekena Hari, and so many other public.
And your good self.
And my good self. We started thinking, what is the problem, and how should we re-strategize? And of course, all the heads of the NPCD, Nigerian Primary Care Development Agency, the different ones that came and we were all thinking together to see how we can resolve this problem. And we came to realize that there are two major problems. One, and it's the most important one, is acceptance of the vaccine. The moment, the community denies the immunization, it becomes a huge problem. And I'll give you an example. When I was appointed the chairman of the Presidential Task Force, we decided to move to get the community to understand. So we decided to go to the most difficult communities that have rejected totally immunization. There's one in Zaria. There are some mostly in Sokoto, Zamfara, and then Kano. So we decided to take that pathway. So I said, but if I go as a just medical doctor or medical team, it doesn't make sense. We need sociologists, we need media experts, theater experts that can understand, why is the community, rejecting this. In that mission, I took one of you that time, Peter Ego. Then I took some sociologists from the university. So we had about 5, 6 Land Cruisers who were moving together. And we went to Zaria, and they warned me not to go to a particular area because if I go there, there's one man, he could even kill us. And you cannot believe it. We went to Zaria on an immunization day, and we met so many children playing football. And some of them were mostly above 5 years old, and this. We had sweets, we had this. So we mixed up with them. Our team were trying to see how they can start the immunization. And the small of them that we had, we said, let's see if we can join them to play the football. It made a huge difference. We joined them, and we realized that among some of them, there are tiny children. How old are you? They will say, I'm 10. Some will say they are 4. So the age group was between 4 to about 12. So we're saying if there are 12-year-old children that are even, not immunized, and they can catch from the younger ones. So we decided to say, okay, all of them will get sweet, but we shall drop this vaccine in their mouth, irrespective of their age. So we did so. But of course, before we did that, we had to go to the leader of that community who accepted us. Now, the next is to go to that area of Zaria city.
Where the tough guy was.
Where the tough guy was. And I went straight to his house. When I went straight to his house in the Zaure, I met somebody almost 90-year-old. They said that's his father. So I told him my mission. He said, he's advising me to go because he's at home and he can be wild. He can come out and all this. So as we were talking, he said, we should move. I said, no. He can't do anything to me. I'm from Kano. We are friends here. And I've come to exchange small words with him. To cut a long story short, one of the wives came out with a child. And you can't believe it. Has already polio.
He was already paralyzed.
Paralyzed. So as soon as she came out, I saw the leg. So my partner, another doctor said, sir, this boy has polio. And that was his child. And then Peter Ego also saw it. Then we said, this is serious. So I took the baby. I was holding the baby. I said, now at least he can't kill me. Before he kills me, I had to kill his child. So I held on tight to that child. And the child really, held as if he knew me years ago. So the mother started crying. So the father told his wife to go and call him out.
That's the grandfather.
The grandfather. So he was very angry. Then they called him out. So when he came, he said, "What am I doing here?" I said, "Look at me. What I'm doing. I have come to take care of your child, and to greet you. Is it a crime to greet somebody, even in Islam? You have to say Assalamu alaikum first." And I engaged him. To say the least, we ended up being the best of friends. That guy became one of the guys that moved to get all Zaria children immunized.
He became an advocate.
I sponsored the child up to university level.
Interesting.
So now the last part of it is in Sokoto, and that is one of the most important aspects in polio eradication in Nigeria. We realized that any place we went to before we reached Sokoto town, nobody wants to talk to us. So I now, we are with a WHO guy, with these other experts. So I now told our people in the evening when we were around Gusau, I said, we can't succeed if we don't reach the Sultan of Sokoto. I will have shown you the picture, you know. In fact, that picture went around the world. They say, how? I say, if Sultan can come out and immunize the children, we have the picture, we show everybody, it will make a huge difference. Believe me, that's what we did. We went, the Sultan categorically told us he's no longer interested in polio, this, and so on and so forth. Allah Shehu Shagarimi is, you know, was there. He was one of the palace chiefs. And I now...
one of the councillors.
I now knelt down, Rakin Sokoto, I knelt down and begged His Eminence, Sultan of Sokoto, to please...
You are talking of late Sir Abubakar.
No,
Sultan Abubakar.
No, this current one. This curent one. This current one.
Muhammad Saad Abubakar?
Muhammad Saad Abubakar.
So which year was that, sir?
This was 19...
What year?
1990... is it 2006 or 2005? Yeah. Okay. So between those years. So he came out. He now agreed. Surprisingly, he agreed. Listen, so we rushed. I said, bring some children. And they brought the children. And, you know, the WHO guy had a fantastic camera and took the picture. And from then on, we started showing this picture anywhere we went to. It made a huge difference. So Sultan contributed immensely. And from that time, any president, any government, any MPCD director that comes must go to the Sultan. And then when we brought Bill Gates as one of our greatest advocates, we also took him to the Sultan. So this is the story of how...
The strategies you adopted. The
strategies were adopted to get people to this. And one of the villages near Sokoto, where was, you know, even worse than Zaria. Nobody can even go to the village because of one malam there. We entered the village. And you know what we did? We bought footballs, I mean, the balls with us, and entered the village with this Hausa music from Kano in our loudspeakers, and organized football match between two teams. Nasidi team, Peter Igo team. Gave them the balls, and they started, you know, playing. We sponsored this and bought minerals, bought this. The village was agog. Then you could see some women who come with their children already paralyzed, looking very sad. Then behind me, the Malam came. And somebody who saw him thought he was going to either stab me or whatever, and so on and so forth. So the guy rushed to me and said, be careful. That wicked man is behind you. So when I turned and I saw him, you know, without joined eyes, as they say in Nigeria, and I told him, oh, so we are one of the people that I have come to greet. Barka, what's your name? He didn't answer me. To call the long story short, at the end of the day, when we are now honoring those who won, of course, luckily my team won. And now we are giving the goodies and all this. Now I invited him and showed him the picture of myself and the Sultan.
And the Sultan, yes.
Immunizing a child. He froze, he looked like this. He just didn't know what to do. As I told him, I said, the time has changed. And this is Allah working. You can't go against Allah. Every child in this village must be immunized. We did not leave the town or that village without getting every child immunized.
Well, Professor Nasiri, thank God that all those efforts yielded the needed results. Especially we know the contribution that the northern traditional rulers particularly made in Nigeria's efforts at polio eradication. Let's talk about the place of the EOCs now. They said the emergence of the emergency operation centers, it's something that we cannot discuss Nigeria's journey without mention. Some even have described it as a very strong game changer. Can you take us through what, how did it come to be and the role it actually played and is still playing, even in our current situation, talking about the COVID-19?
Yeah. You know, the EOC is like the war room. You know, you can't go into the war theater without having the commanders, you know, having a war room where they, you know, really will see anything happening and where they should, you know, block, how they should attack, how they should retreat, and others. So by the time we saw that we needed a better coordinating mechanism to make our response more effective, we now realize that it's not just issue of having Ministry of Health, doing the disease surveillance, also because there are three components of the strategy. One is to do the routine immunization. The second one is to do supplementary immunization, which is this national immunization days they do. Then the other one is to do the mop-up, if it's already been eliminated. So all this were being handled by the Ministries of Health or either federal level or state, even though we have many actors, WHO, UNICEF, Rotary, all this. So it now became obvious. How can you have a coordinating mechanism that will, take into consideration the roles of all these other actors, a multi-sectoral approach? So it now became obvious that the best thing to do is to establish an emergency operating center. So declare any immunization against polio and this in anywhere as an emergency. Then secondly, it became very much more important to have real-time information. Real-time information, what is happening now. I'll give an example. I went to Kano. My house was in Abuja, and I woke up in the morning and said, let me go and see, so it was a National Immunization Day. Let me go and see what's happening in some of the immunization centers. I went to the one near my house first. Then from there, I was there for about 1 hour. From there, I said, let me go to one near Tarauni or one of these areas in Kano. Lucky, what saved me is this machine here that you are seeing, this telephone. As I was on my way, just about to reach that place that we chose, where they advised me to go to, I had a call consistently, so I answered the call. Make a U-turn, don't go there, don't go there. What's happening? They say some terrorists went there and killed the team, immunization team, and even some of the parents. It was such a tragedy.
That was in 2013.
Yeah, 2013. So it was so terrible. I was so terrified. By the time I understand what was happening, they asked me to go to Kano Teaching Hospital. Now we went and met young people with immunization apparels and all this lying dead. It was such a terrible situation. So this type of emergency things, response activities, also necessitated the EOC. Then the last part of this is that the EOC, developed something that is very important, which is now being used even for COVID-19. It was used for Ebola. That is to have a dashboard. A dashboard just, where you can get snapshot of of what is happening now in Nigeria as regards polio. How many children immunized, how many cases have been found, how many from wild polio virus, how many from vaccine virus, and so on and so forth. So, introduction of the emergency operating centers and this dashboard made a huge difference in our response to polio and subsequently to other diseases.
So what can you say about the vaccine itself and then the skepticism that came along with it? How effective was the vaccine, and it's still effective maybe, in spite of the fact that we have eradicated it in Nigeria?
Yeah, as I said from the beginning, the polio vaccine is one of the most effective vaccines ever developed. And luckily, it's cheap. One, the first vaccine that was developed was a killed vaccine. So the guy who developed it identified the virus, isolated it, and inactivated it by killing it, and then started immunizing children through the syringe, with the syringe. Now, polio virus multiplies very fast in what they call cells. So that means if you can adapt it severally into some of the cells, it will grow and it will lose its potency to cause disease. But it is the same virus. So this doctor, called Sabin.
Dr. Sabin.
Dr. Sabin. He now said he believes polio can be controlled easier or even eradicated if there is a live vaccine against it. So he now developed this live vaccine. So that live vaccine, let me tell you the advantages. One, it was easier to produce. You just harvest, grow, harvest, and then purify. Is the cheapest to, how will I say, apply. You don't need syringe. You don't need any, wash your hands, put some antiseptics, and then every child comes, you just a drop or 2 or 3 to the mouth. It was so easy. And the last one is the logistics. You don't need to carry much. Can you imagine if you have to give killed vaccine? You need to take the vaccine in a cold chain, boxes of syringes, swab, this, that. So you might need larger space to go with the killed vaccine than with the live vaccine. Live vaccine, you can immunize a whole village with just a Land Cruiser and the boots. You just carry the vaccine and immunize.
So that generally facilitated or fast-tracked the eradication?
Absolutely. It helped a lot.
You talked a little about the tragedy in Kano. Of course, there was another tragedy, the Pfizer controversy.
Yes.
Is it related to the polio eradication effort?
Yeah, the Pfizer controversy of the drug called Trovan, was not related to polio eradication, but it worsened our ability. It worsened the situation and made people to even reject the vaccine more. And the story is that we had triple tragedy, we used to call it, outbreak of meningitis, cholera, and measles at the same time in Kano, 1996, 1997. And meningitis was so severe, I've never seen such outbreak. So Professor Idris Mohammed and I were there to coordinate. I from the Ministry of Health, then the minister made him the chairman, to make sure that we get this, and so that I will be moving up and down. And Pfizer came up with a drug which actually is effective. So it's effective against bacteria that are like the one for meningitis. So they introduced it into Nigeria, brought it in. Before we know where we are, we just went one day to the center, the infectious disease center where they were treating the patient, and we saw them trying the drug on children, even taking their
without any formal permission.
Yeah. They said, so when we asked them, at least I should have known, Professor Idris Mohammed should have known, how they said, oh, they wrote to the Federal Minister of Health, they got a letter, they got this, they got that, and they kept, taking samples from the spine of the children and giving them the Trovan. So
they more or less used them as guinea pigs.
Virtually.
As guinea pigs.
It was a big scandal. So we rejected, and we reported their behavior, to the government. So there's a minister who was not decided, was virtually supporting them, and at the end of the day, the federal government instituted a committee to investigate that outbreak. By chance, again, I was the chairman, and we found them guilty. That even though the drug, could be effective, but their approach, this thing was very unethical, and so they are liable. So that is a long story. Let me bring it back to polio. That singular activity made it even worse. That the people said, see, we told you they're using us as guinea pigs.
So it affected their trust in
public health response. It was very bad. In fact, not only Kano, later many other countries too heard about it and started rejecting immunization. So, but by the time it settled a little bit down, we now came back to our polio eradication. And
how did the role of polio survivors really facilitated your efforts at eradication?
That was a very great question. And, I couldn't have even finished this without, talking about the importance of their role. For instance, they have an association. And do you know the effect of seeing a child, that is paralyzed, or an adult who will come out in the language of the community and tell them, These people are talking to you about this disease that has affected me. Look at me now, you are all standing, I can't stand. You all can run, if there's trouble, I can't run. Because of this, had it been when I was a child, I was given a drop of this that they want to drop in your child's mouth now. If you know how that affected the community, it was really, really, something, that you can't believe. So, in fact, how would I say, they need to be honored as, one of the key actors that made it possible.
The success story that Nigeria is talking about today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The ultimate is for nations to become, free of the wild polio virus, just like Nigeria is still basking in that euphoria. And can you give us a clear distinction between the wild polio virus and the vaccine-derived polio? Because I've heard people said it's over, yet it's not over, because the aspect of vaccine-derived polio is another issue. Just take us through.
How can a country get vaccine-derived polio?
What's the difference?
Distinct from the wild polio virus?
Okay, so the wild polio virus is the one that they acquire, as I told you, when they are playing together, mostly through water, drinking, or contact in the schools and all, whatever. And that one is the wicked one, very wicked, because it has all the potencies to paralyze the child and even kill the child in the brain. Now, the vaccine-derived polio, paralysis, is from the live vaccine only. The kill vaccine does not cause vaccine-derived polio. That's why some of the scientists started agitating that enough, stop using the live polio vaccine now. Let's now go to use the killed polio vaccine, because killed polio vaccine will not lead to any vaccine-derived paralysis. So why is it happening? I told you the live polio vaccine is the attenuation or making the wild polio virus weak, and it loses its potency. So when you are now sure that it has no longer potency to cause paralysis, you now have a live vaccine. But nature, some of them, one in maybe 100 or 500,000 or 2, 3 in 1 million, can escape. Can escape. So there is now this group of viruses that are from the vaccine strain that can paralyze the children. Yeah. So you have to choose. Choose between knocking off the wild polio virus from your country and remain, with the vaccine-derived possible ones that could occur, which are very few.
So is that possibility existing in Nigeria now? Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely so. But, even if you have vaccine-derived polio, it's no longer a polio outbreak per se. So it will not be regarded as wild polio virus coming back to Nigeria. So it will be occurring until after some time when we wean off the immunization, then there will be no need anymore for polio vaccine immunization.
What do you say to possibilities, according to some experts, that even the wild polio virus itself can return?
Yeah, it's very possible, because up to tomorrow we have 2 countries that are, still having wild polio virus, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, we have, military trade missions, additional contact with Pakistan in particular. We don't have that contact with Afghanistan much. So the chance of getting wild polio virus coming from Afghanistan to Nigeria is very minimal. But with Pakistan, we can never say no. We have a lot of Pakistanis in Nigeria. Many Nigerians are now trading with Pakistan, and they are really having, good manufacturing capacities now. So it's just a 24 hours ride. Wild polio vaccine can be brought into Nigeria. So that means the only way we can checkmate that is to have robust surveillance, disease surveillance, so that as soon as any comes, you round it up, do mop up, and get it out of the way.
Okay, we live in a country where it's so easy for people to become complacent. For instance, we were aware of funders that were coming into the polio eradication initiative. And now that we have been certified polio-free, how is government or the drivers going to be able to, make people understand the fact that Nigeria is now polio-free does not mean that funding should cease or we take a back seat?
Yeah. So I will say that once again, we cannot rest on our oars, as they say. That would be the most dangerous thing to do. But we have very solid partners. And these partners, they know what will happen after the continent or the country is declared polio-free. We can go into complacency, we can go into, this, and then we can be surprised again. So there is what they call exit strategy for the polio, whatever. And then there is another strategy, which I've forgotten the name, I remember, by the Rotary and the nations on how to make sure that we don't lose the gains, momentum, and then push the same methods, including EOCs, to fight other diseases. And don't forget about that polio could come back.
Has Nigeria adopted that? Or
yes.
Have you advised
No, Nigeria has adopted it. It's what Rotary, UNICEF, WHO, the Ministry of Health all are doing. And the lead on that is the Honorable Minister of Health. And we believe that that strategy is...
Professor Nasidi, certainly we will not just dwell on wild polio virus and the eradication efforts. We are in a pandemic. COVID-19 is still very much with us. One would want to know, as an expert, how do you see the state of containment, the state of... can we now say we are on the verge of eradicating it, for example? And generally, what are your assessments?
Well, before we go to COVID-19, can I say something here? Just I don't know if the camera can pick it. This is a picture of President Obasanjo, President Carter, and the father of Bill Gates, his mother, and myself. And this is a momentous period in our history.
What year was that?
I think it was 2002. 2002.
Let's see the picture again. Yes. The camera is still trying to... Yeah.
Okay. You managed to pick it?
Yes. So what about the picture?
The picture...
Father of Bill Gates, President Obasanjo, yourself.
Yeah. So I'm saying the type of support that we're having from our partners and donors, will not wane off because of the root of how we got Bill Gates to come in, how we got Angote to come in, how Rotary is constantly in support and standby for Nigeria and so many others. So I think, with that, just to answer her question, and the federal government, as I told you, did something that is very great. The president approved what they call the Basic Healthcare Fund.
Provision Fund.
So that is a huge, step forward in our healthcare. That even boosts the confidence of the partners. So you can see that, we are not going to fail in Nigeria by God's grace. We shall sustain this.
Can that be replicated as we try to contain COVID-19?
Yeah. So now I tie this to COVID-19. COVID-19 is a little bit different from polio, but at the same time we can, explore, the gains and the tools we use to fight polio, to fight this disease. Already, as you know, the first case when it arrived, 27th of February,
yes.
Into this country,
yes.
It didn't take us by surprise as like Ebola did. And at least we have some mechanisms on ground. And let me tell you something. From the time the virus came into Nigeria on the 27th, by the end of the first week, we have already identified that definitely it is COVID. Our scientists have isolated the virus. and characterized the virus and sent it to World Gene Bank. That was such a feat.
The
NCDC. So all these were actually the products of our fight against polio and Ebola. So we had a lot on ground already. Then this virus, when it came in all this, and I was just talking and people thought I was mad. I said, can surprise us and stay longer than we were thinking. Because Ebola is a contact disease. You have to come close to the person's body or the body fluid or all this. But this one can be spread through air or through droplet. So the WHO said, no, only droplet. But now, everybody now has agreed that it can also fly by air. So the fact that the disease is still spreading in our communities, is definitely, consolidated by the fact that it can easily be transmitted, in the markets, in any place you have a lot of people, etc. So the strategy on how to knock off this disease and control it is so tough. And it has come to test our health systems, not only of a country like ours, which is a developing country. Look at what COVID is doing in strong countries in Europe, in America. Yesterday or Tuesday, another 1,000 deaths in America. So it's such a terrible disease, a virus, that it's as if it has come, let me test your health system. You say you are strong, let me test you. So you bring this, it goes that way. You bring this. So it's a tougher battle. But nevertheless, I think we have introduced some novel approach in fighting the disease. The establishment of the Presidential Task Force is a novel approach, where you bring all the sectors, multi-sectors, to address, how to fight an enemy. But what is new there, because we had a Presidential Task Force, like against polio. But this one is a standing task force with the heads of all these agencies themselves participating. Like if you say Minister of Interior, the Minister of Interior must be there talking. If you say Minister of Health will be there and be talking, and so on and so forth. So it's a wonderful approach which some countries are learning. Nigeria have done well. The only weakness of this is that the scientific component and technical component is a bit weak, but nevertheless, it's a novel idea.
You want that improved?
Yeah, I want that improved, of
course. Prof, we may have to stop there because our time is fast gone. We have done 52 minutes. Actually, the program runs of about 55 minutes. Okay. Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi, Provost, College of Health Sciences, University of Africa, Torua in Bayelsa State. Thank you so very much for your insights, your thoughts on how Nigeria was able to eliminate the wild polio virus, and of course, and the hope you have raised in the sense that even COVID-19, we are on the verge of getting a breakthrough. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Rabi Abdullah, head of NTA's health desk and our in-house medical doctor. Thank you so much for being there all the time. In the last 55 minutes, we've been talking with Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi, Provost, College of Health Sciences, University of Africa, in Torua in Bayelsa State. But he was former and pioneer Director General of the National Center for Disease Control in Nigeria, and is a professor of epidemiology and a virologist at the same time. The focus has been Nigeria's polio-free status, challenges, and prospects. That's Platform. Thank you for watching. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Bye for now.